welcome into the Valley Current. Dr. Sam Savage hasn't been a guest for a while, and I wanted to get an update from you, Sam, about what you're doing, because you started this nonprofit a while ago, and you've been dedicated to it. Probability management is the name of it. And you also teach at Stanford, and you do a lot of other things too. So tell me what's happening to all the above.
Yeah. Well, so with a nonprofit, we had this terrifically quixotic idea to do for uncertainty what Hindu Arabic numerals had done for numbers, right? And it was quixotic. But one of the windmills turned into Royal Dutch Shell in 2006. I've been doing this for like almost a quarter century. So one of the windmills turns into Royal Dutch Shell, another one turns into a big pharmaceutical. And then in 2013, as you know, we kept gaining momentum, and we formed a 501c3 nonprofit, co-founded with Harry Markowitz, Nobel laureate in economics, and you were one of the people we called midwives.
Right.
We were all down in San Diego at Harry Markowitz's office that holds 10 people.
I remember that.
And there were 12 of us.
We were like the original founders. Yeah, it's true.
We got funding from Lockheed Martin, from Chevron, and so things continued to grow and prosper, but the idea is nuts. And I probably have to describe the idea, which is now working, quickly to your audience, and then the discussion will make some sense.
Okay? Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So I am also the author of a book called The Flaw of Averages, and I'll demonstrate it right away, but it says that plans based on average assumptions are wrong on average.
Right.
For anyone who knows what a stock option is, let's talk about a call option that is at the money. Right. So the stock is selling for $10 today. I have a call option with a strike of $10. That means I get the difference between what it's selling for and the strike. Well, on average, that stock's going to be selling for $10.
Right.
Which means that option would have no value.
Right.
Yeah. But a very famous solution to a particular case of the flaw of averages is called the Black-Scholes equation, which says the heck on average it's worth $10. If the stock goes up, you're going to make money on it. If it goes down, you don't have to exercise the option. Mm-hmm. So it's either worth something or nothing. And the average of something or nothing is something.
Right. Right.
And that something was specified by the Black-Scholes equation. So a famous example that I use is the statistician who drowns in the river that is on average 3 feet deep.
Right.
And to really understand the impact of this, I'm going to quickly describe the arithmetic of uncertainty. Mm-hmm. Now, if I told you what the mathematicians call this concept, it would trigger what we call post-traumatic statistics disorder, or PTSD. So I'm not going to call it what it's really called by mathematicians. I'm going to call it the arithmetic of uncertainty, but I'm going to discuss it in terms that anyone can understand. Right. That is, where arithmetic tells you that x plus y equals z, the arithmetic of uncertainty says, Jack, what do you want z to be? Here are your chances. Mm-hmm. Right. How are you doing that today? The point is, you're not, and you could be. Because the nonprofit now represents uncertainty as auditable data. And I'm going to give you a really quick little demo, and then we'll be in a position to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So let's take a classic example where uncertainty shows up. We're building out a new website. We got 4 pages: the accounts, products, orders, fulfillment pages. It's not our first rodeo.
Right.
These things take 10 weeks on average. Mm-hmm. But remember, if the first page goes 11 weeks, and they're in parallel, right? 14, well, then we go live in 11 weeks. And that simply involves a max statement. Just says, You take the maximum of all these, and that's when you're going to finish. But now imagine someone says, oh, what's the chance we'll finish in 10 weeks? This is the unanswerable question today. Oh, but I'm going to use chance calc, which is this little add-in from the nonprofit. And the add-in is not the power here. The power is the data standard that we're processing. So I'm going to select these. I'm going to click on this little button which says go out and browse for uncertainties. This is like a little browser.
Right.
And I've got uncertainties here on COVID-19 that came.
Oh, you do? Oh, you've got some COVID? Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I didn't know that.
We did this in conjunction with a colleague from Kaiser Permanente. No, it's very cool.
That's big, Sam. That's really big.
It is big. But I'm gonna demo this with something small. I go to my development time library, and so now all the user has to do is say, oh yeah, it's accounts, products, down through fulfillments. I don't need the marketing one here. I click OK. It runs out to the cloud, comes back with, oh, those little curves represent uncertainties. And they're not bell-shaped, right? They're not normal curves. They're not the famous bell. They're all their own things. Why? Because it's not our first rodeo. And we recorded that in these. Okay. So look, that's trial 1, trial 2, trial 3. Count the number of keystrokes here. Not a lot of keystrokes to look at this thing. I also, in the metadata, have got the mean, the average. Well, that was 10. And notice I can do this one in my head because the maximum of 10, 10, 10, and 10 is 10. Oh, wait a minute. But that's the flaw of averages, right? No, you can't plug in the averages. Okay, now watch the keystrokes. Watch the keystrokes to determine the chance that we come in at 10 weeks or less.
Right.
So I go less than or equal to. I type 10. Now I have to learn a new button. It's the chance of whatever button.
Right.
The chance of whatever button says, oh yeah, you want to know the chance that that formula is less than or equal to that number, and press the OK button. And the answer is 15%.
Wow.
And you can't do that in your head. And oh my God, you didn't promise them 10. Oh, thank God, you promised the customer 11 weeks. Oh, well, good for you. Then you have a 24% chance, right?
Nice.
And you might say, if we did this over and over 100 times, what would our average be? And I click on the average button. So what I'm saying is now we've got 100 of these little jobs, right? And they've all got the same statistics. Well, on average, it would take you almost 15 weeks. That's the classic flaw of averages. Put in the average finish times, you're done in 10 weeks. On average, you're done in almost 15 weeks. So that's what we're doing. And that's how you find your chances. We have just, our open standard, we're storing these as little JSON objects, which is amazing. You've known Dan Filestra for even longer than I have. He's the guy who co-founded VisiCorp that did VisiCalc.
Yeah.
And now runs Frontline Systems, which built the solver for Microsoft Excel.
Right.
Frontline Systems has a whole big suite of analytical software, and he's adopted our standard. So that's what's happened recently is we've sort of gone big time, and we're working still with the big companies, the Lockheeds, the Kaisers, and things like that. So that's my intro.
Well, you're doing some amazing stuff. I was kind of interested that you're actually providing a single point number. I thought you were more of a guy that liked to provide ranges of numbers.
The chance is a range of numbers.
Yeah.
So the chance is an infinite number of numbers.
Right.
Because you go here. So I'll give you the chance of finishing in 1 week. Oh no, being less than 1 week is 0. Let's go up to 11 weeks is 24%, 12 weeks, 36%, 12.1 weeks, 37%. No, that's an infinite number of numbers depending on what you put in there.
Right.
That's the whole distribution. But you get to interact with it. So don't think of that as a single number at all. It just depends on what you ask for up here. This average is a single number. And by the way, that's not the number you would have gotten if you'd put the average durations in as inputs, because then you would have gotten 10 weeks. So at least if you're going to go with an average, go with the correct one. So the correct average value of an at-the-money call option is something positive, that number being the output of the Black-Scholes equation. But we've got the entire distribution in the whole time. So you can do any statistical query of any of this stuff ad hoc on the fly. It does have to do with computers being extremely fast. Oh, this is a native Excel file, by the way. So there's a little macro that built the file for me, but now that I've built it, I could send this to 1 billion of my closest friends, and they each might want to put in a different number here. Someone wants to put in 13 weeks. Well, when they get the file, they do that. And 1/100th of a second, after they enter this thing, the thing has done a new computation and gives them a new set of chances or whatever.
Right. So are you starting to actually get a bunch of clients to use this in due course? Like what's happening?
Yeah. So let's talk about that. And so let me show you the example that the guy did from Kaiser Permanente. It's a really fascinating one. So what's going to come up now is an app in a package called Analytica.
Right.
That was created by a colleague of mine at Kaiser Permanente. So Kaiser is one of our sponsors.
Right.
And this guy created this little app. I mean, I can tell you that Kaiser is concerned about COVID surges.
Right.
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 And he's one of their main risk managers. And so the CDC gives you data on the forecast, but they don't give you anything actionable. They don't give you a simulation. They say there's a chance of this, a chance of this, and a chance of this. Now let's take a look at a state. Like we're looking at California. I'm going to click a button here. So this little application is running in a package called Analytica, and that's our little symbol for our 2.0 standard. That the click the little button and let it crank. So what we've moved to now is this new JSON standard is our 3.0 standard. And just think of it, if probability were electricity, we've moved from direct current to alternating current. It was a big deal when that happened in 1895. And Westinghouse and Tesla became dominant over Edison. But this now gives you, in California, it's kind of nice to see things are trending down. But this top line is, like 95% of the time, or 99% of the time, we will be less than this, which means that there's one chance in 100 at least that we're going up. And 50% of the time will be below that line, and so on.
How does it look in Florida these days? I'm kind of curious. Do you have
Let's just take a look.
Get all the states in there? We got them
all. Isn't that amazing? And what
huge.
happens is, once a week, this little app goes out and scrapes the CDC website.
Oh, that's great.
It's going down in Florida. Let's take a look at Alaska.
You've launched this as a public tool already? This is actually...
We have not. We actually have... We're showing it to people. We're not inviting them here because it would probably crash the website.
Okay.
We got to get some funding, Jack, where we can build up our chops here. There's Alaska. Alaska is on the way up.
Interesting.
All right. Now, let me show you how you would use this. Oh, can you imagine that you're a hospital somewhere and you're worried about the chances of exceeding your ICU unit?
Right.
How many hospitals have that problem? All hospitals have that problem, especially in Alaska.
Right.
So if I click this button, it actually downloads this as a SIP. So SIP stands for Stochastic Information Packet. That's what we call these little Arabic numerals of uncertainty. Okay, so let's go back to this little app. Once a week, it scrapes the CDC website. Then it runs a simulation. You cannot estimate the chances of things purely off these bands. You need a real simulation. So the data, I refer to the data as sips and slurps. Why sips and slurps? Because I know you've got bit and bite firmly emblazoned in your brain, and I want to go use those receptors, right?
Right.
That's the way drugs work. They find some receptor in the body that's, receptive to some chemical. I mean, this is like heroin works so well because it goes and ends up in your endorphin receptors or whatever the heck it is, right? Okay. So I'm going to go back to Chance Calc, and I'm going to open a new workbook, and I'm going to go to the settings, and I'm going to say, you know what, settings, I don't want you to go out online to find these things. I want you to go out to my own website. Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. No, here, hold on. I don't have to do that. No, let's stay online. I can do it online. This just isn't going to be current data. That's all. You don't care when the data was from. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be from an earlier COVID forecast. And so I go out and I look for libraries, COVID-19 hospitalization forecasts, right? So this one was done a while ago and stored online. And what I'm going to do is only go down, it does 28 days. I'm going to go down to 10 days. And I'm going to insert the names on the left. It charges out there now. And again, all this stuff, you typically would store this stuff once a week. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now I'm looking at trial 1. Look at these numbers. Trial 1, that's day 1 through day 10. Mm-hmm. Trial 2, trial 3. And so this is for some state, I don't even know what state it is, and I don't know what date it is, don't know the state or the date, but this is the expected number of hospitalizations in your state, right? Now, if your hospital had 20% of the patients, then you'd multiply that by 0.2. Let's say we're in this mystery state, and one of the things I'm interested in is, well, on average, what would I expect? I'm expecting these numbers on average. And now I say, my state has got 600. My state has got 600 ICU beds. Oh, let's do it. Let's be more generous. I've got 700 ICU beds. And what is the chance that the number I need is greater than or equal to 700? Well, that's going to take basically 3 keystrokes. I click the chance of whatever button. I select those uncertainties. I say, what's the chance that that thing exceeds my state's limit of 700 beds? And I pull the trigger, and it does thousands and thousands of calculations. Right. And it says, it's looking bad, guys. Here are your chances. And I run out and I say, well, what would happen if I set up a clinic in a parking lot and it gets me up to 900 beds? And it says, you're good for the next few days, but by day 10, you're going to have a 37% chance of overflow. I got to ask, how are you doing this today? You are not. Right. No one is asking the question, what are the chances, except a few propeller-headed scientists and statisticians. Mm-hmm. But this opens it up for the masses. Mm-hmm. This is publicly available data. We have to process it to get it into our open standard. Any hospital anywhere in the country could be doing this. And I can forward you a link to the video that my colleague Eng Wee and I did on this. We're presenting this numerous places, right? Right. But we really need a grant to get this off the ground in a big way, and that involves getting like a community of practice built around this, right? Which is just absolutely doable at this point. The technology is baked and ready to go.
So what kind of money do you think you need?
Well, I would say...
it's really nonprofit money, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's nonprofit money. Right. Sure.
You can't do it. You can't spin this off as a commercial.
Well, you could. That's not true.
No,
wait a second.
Can you?
You could do that. as long as you use the open standard and don't muck with the standard.
Right.
Oh, no. There are all kinds of profit-making ventures that could be built off this. I don't have the bandwidth to do that. Oh, you want to find angel investors who want to do this and figure out how to help hospitals. And, you need a big hospital management company to do that, right? But I think even then, because it's such an open standard that a grant to get a bunch of hospitals using it, I would say a couple $100,000 for a year of getting this up and running and then turning it over to wherever it goes. And by the way, there would be nothing wrong with it. In that year, we might learn a bunch of really useful stuff that could be spun off to a profit.
Right.
I used to teach at the University of Chicago. I'm a big free market guy. If something is of value to society, there better be a way to make money with it. And if you can't make money with it, well, then maybe you're kidding yourself if it's of any value. I personally think that knowing the chance of exceeding your ICU capacity is of great value. Mm-hmm. Right? But I mean, given all the other things going on in my life, like we're doing a bunch of stuff with defense contractors, where we're doing some consulting. I do wear a consulting hat. And we're doing stuff with a big power utility on the consulting side. Let me say, my role model is that medieval huckster, Fibonacci,
right,
who foisted Arabic numerals off on an unsuspecting Western civilization, right? And I should say Hindu Arabic numerals. And for example, the Fibonacci sequence, that was just a public relations play. That's like, okay, bozos, can you do this with your lousy Roman numerals? This was 1199. Trust me, Fibonacci had a consulting side. Oh yeah, you want us to help you do money exchange or calculate annuities? I'm really good at this. You should try this with the Hindu Arabic numerals. It's so much easier. Mm-hmm. I have a consulting side. The fact is that most of the supporters of the nonprofit have come from my consulting side into the nonprofit.
Right.
But I'm a great believer in making money with the stuff if you can, and I fully support it, but then I don't work at my nonprofit rates either.
Right.
This one could certainly go either way, but I think that often once you start getting people too much avarice in the mix, you don't get the creativity to really make it get off the ground. I think this has kind of a perfect nonprofit appeal.
Yeah.
And it's so simple to do. We don't have to do a lot of R&D on this, okay, or a lot of investment to see if it'll work. It is working now.
Right.
And I have a wonderful team around me who could drive the organization around around what I would call a collaborative pandemic initiative.
There you go.
We're working together, right?
That's the way to put it.
Yeah, so that is one of the most exciting ones, and I'm waiting for the people to walk in the door. But it's not. I'll tell you what. Military readiness is another huge one for us, and that's where I am working with a DoD contractor, actually on a consulting basis. It is amazing if you take our big weapon systems.
Right.
Like take aircraft. Aircraft don't fly all the time. They're less dependable than an old jalopy, right? You go out and you go to start your car, 99% chance it'll start.
Right.
You go out to start your fighter plane in the morning, and I don't care how brand new it is, if it's still got a new plane smell, still only like a 75 or 80% chance it'll start.
Is that right? Wow.
It isn't that it doesn't start, it's that it's not ready to fly.
Yeah.
In other words, it wasn't that they tried to start and it didn't start. Oh no, it'll start. The problem is that it's got a flat tire.
Oh, there's a lot of checklist issues, right? There's a lot of stuff you got to do, sort of a checklist kind of thing, right?
You got to empty the ashtray. There are all these protocols, right? You got to get all that stuff.
Right.
And by the way, if you haven't emptied the ashtray, then you're not qualified to fly.
Yeah.
So believe me, 75 or 80% is considered very good. And if you use averages, if everything is averages, if you got time, I got a great example of this military defense thing,
right?
Which is, I'll just pop it up. This one is, Yeah, is the plane going to be grounded or not? Demo. Okay. So here we go. Here we go. So they talk about, I've got 4 systems on this airplane, any one of which could fail. And if anything fails, it's going to bring the plane down.
Right.
I don't mean crash it. I mean, you're not going to be able to fly this morning. Okay. But these are all different sorts of things. I mean, we've got a little transformer in this one. We got a hydraulic pump thing. We got a radar. I got a hamster in a hamster cage.
Right.
All these things have got to be working.
Mm-hmm.
So if these are the mean or average, as in flaw of averages, mean flight hours before failure.
Right.
Well, it looks like we'll fly for, it looks like we'll maybe get a maximum of 5.5 hours, right? Because this is the minimum of all those. What's the chance we'll actually fly 5.5 hours? You can't tell me that unless you have distributions.
Right.
So I'll pop back to the chance calc. I will select these. I'll go out to the web again, and I've got something called flight systems, and there they are. And so I will simply plug in my 4 flight systems in here. Oh, they're little distributions. They got their own little shapes. And, well, let's just see what the chance is that I'm going to fly greater than or equal to 5.5 hours. 5.5 hours.
Right.
Because the minimum of these on average was 5.5, so I told the client, oh yeah, this ought to fly for 5.5 hours before maintenance, between maintenance, right?
Right.
Well, I click the chance of whatever button. I click this thing. I say, what's the chance that that thing is greater than or equal to 5.5? And the answer turns out to be 9%.
Right.
No wonder projects are always behind schedule, beyond budget, and below projection, right? Oh boy, we better just tell them a 5-hour flight time between repair. Oh great, now you've got a 15% chance. On average, how long will this thing fly?
Right.
So I'll click on the average button. And given these statistics, on average, it's going to fly 3.8 hours.
Right.
You do not get that unless you put in a distribution. It's the flaw of averages all over the place.
Right.
What's hard to believe is that big companies are not doing it already. Oh, by the way, some of them are. Hold on a second. Financial engineering firms, the Goldman Sachs of the world, and the insurance companies have been doing very much what I've been doing for a long time. They're not doing it this way. They don't know about this stuff yet. This stuff is new to them. These are little JSON objects.
Right.
The original way I did it was by just storing thousands of trials of Monte Carlo, realizations.
Right.
And they were doing that. That's the old direct current approach. Using little JSON objects, your audience does not want to see what JSON looks like. It looks like gobbledygook.
Right.
It's very structured gobbledygook. It's very tiny.
Right.
And it can carry all kinds of information. It is the way to communicate data on the web.
Right.
So
you guys have become kind of the experts in this stuff, realistically.
I would say more the only game in town.
Yeah, maybe the only game in town. That's probably the better way to put it, isn't it?
Yeah, because I don't know of anyone else doing. I'm sure big companies are doing things like this internally.
Right.
Ours is an open cross-platform standard.
Yeah.
I have not seen anything else even vaguely close to this until you go into the insurance companies or the financial engineering companies to places they're never going to show you. And when they do it, it's in their own proprietary internal format.
Right.
An analogy there would be that imagine the early railroads where a 3-foot gauge track went down to the coal mine, a 4-foot gauge track went out to the lumber yard, 4.5-foot gauge track went to the grain elevator.
Right.
And I'm the guy who came along and said, hey guys, if you made the track all the same gauge, you could get from anywhere to anywhere else.
Right.
And that never occurred to them. Because the coal miners said, our whole world is mining coal, and all we care about is getting to the coal mine, from the coal mine to the heap, where the ox cart drags it away, right? those siloed applications are very different from what we've done. What we've done is we're networking everything.
Mm-hmm.
These networked chance-informed models are what is so new. There's a bunch of new stuff here. I mean, you've seen the tips of like 3 or 4 icebergs here that I don't have time to go into. But just the notion that, the CDC can somehow spit out this data and we can deliver it to anyone, anywhere, in a form that they can run in a simulation to estimate chances.
Why do you think so far there hasn't been any sort of public company that's picked up on this? Like, you essentially are doing stuff that's ahead of where Analytica should be. I think Analytica could presumably, aren't they a public company?
No. Analytica is not. I know the owner. And for example, we're seeing some big advantages there.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode of The Valley Current.